Hi, I'm Andrew Mellon, Creative Director at Giant Spoon in Los Angeles, California. Over the last year, I've had the pleasure of working with 7 artists from unique backgrounds, each with a different expertise, as they set out to collaborate on a single project. Working in photography, typography, 3D, VR, and even traditional painting, these artists came together across continents, working remotely and through a pandemic, to push their craft by honing new skills and learning from each other. It was a true experiment in collaboration and resulted in countless creative breakthroughs. Today, I'm joined by 5 of these artists, all of whom have been ambassadors for Z by HP for nearly 3 years. I'll be asking them questions about their creative journey, from the first idea to the finished film, peeling back the curtain on their process, their passions, and the project as a whole. So, let's meet our Z ambassadors. If you guys could, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and your work. Nidia, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Nidia. I'm from Portugal. I'm a freelance art director. I work mainly with style frames looked at for motion graphics. And I've been working in various styles, but mainly 3D abstract for the last 10 years.
Hi, I'm Rik. I'm from the Netherlands. I live in a small town called Hilversum, which is 15 minutes from Amsterdam. I create images, mostly static images, colorful stuff, abstract stuff. And I do that for a living for over 12 years right now.
My name is Alex Trochut. I am from Barcelona. I moved to New York like 8 years ago, and I always been graphic designer, illustrator, and I don't know what else because these days everything's changing so fast. So trying to adapt and enjoy the wonders of technology, which are many these days.
My name is Jody MacDonald. I'm Canadian originally. I live in the States. I'm a professional adventure and documentary photographer. I've been doing that for about 15 years now. I love exploration, going to really remote, exotic areas, having crazy adventures.
My name's Orlando Arocena. I go by the handle Mexifunk. I'm a vector artist and a brand creative strategist. I have my studio here based in Bogota, Colombia. And I've been playing with vector ever since 1997. I get to play routinely with a majority of the top-notch Hollywood studios and home entertainment.
Before we dig into the story behind this breakthrough collaboration, let's take a few minutes to enjoy the finished product itself. Here it is, the living system. So Jody, tell us about the brief for this project.
It was a really open brief. Z by HP asked us to power our own breakthrough and work on a collaborative project where we could work on it during the pandemic and just push our own creative boundaries and create something that was completely up to us.
Nidia, knowing you were going to be working completely remotely, what were your first thoughts about how this collaboration was going to work?
I think it was fun because obviously we all live in different countries. So I think it was fun to finally be able to collaborate with everyone else, right? We've been knowing each other, like I said, for the last 3 years, and we've been at the conference and all this stuff, but we really never had the chance to like work on something together. So I was really excited. I think it was, I think we all were excited to at some point finally being able to work together. And I think, again, because we're all from different countries, I think we'd always have to be remote. Or I mean, we could fly to some exotic island and work from there. I don't mind. We could have done that, but working from home also works.
Rik, how did you guys decide on that workflow between the 7 of you? How did you share ideas and come to a consensus?
Yeah, that's always a challenging thing because like in the end, it's a quite open brief, but you also need to make sure that everyone's happy with the result. Like it should be portfolio worthy, at least in my opinion. So how to align that? It's like, okay, we put together like a mood board and with like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. Jody wants that. Alex likes to do this or to explore that. And that way we kind of like came up with a story like, okay, what could connect with what and who could connect with who and who goes first and who goes after and blah, 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 blah. So that was like the foreplay was quite interesting to that, if I can say it like that. No, but it looks like a challenge because like, of course, like keeping everyone happy because like for instance, like I'm not an animation guy mainly. So how can I create cool animation? Because like, the leap was quite high working with like Nidia, for instance, or GMUNK or Shane that do that for a living, So how challenge ourselves and still be happy with the end product? I thought that was the biggest challenge at first, but I think like we pulled it off like all individually, but also as a collective, and that's really cool.
The themes of nature and evolution and adaptive environments, it all kind of ladders up to this living system. Alex, would you dare and explain, please, what a living system is to you?
Wow. Yeah, from a completely scientific freestyle, I'm going to say that it's a community of beings that they are helping each other to create a self-sufficient environment, I would say, or that would be maybe an ecosystem. But yeah, I think what we were wanting to do in this piece, it was a little bit to capture the moment of 2020 and how we were forced to be inside our bubbles and be isolated, and how that created all this need to maybe reevaluate nature and how individuals, they need community and they need communication and connection, and through technology was also very present, how everybody was being able to do a lot in the distance and somehow acknowledge how important it is, the most basic thing that makes us who we are as humans, like it's just this human connection. So that evolved into the idea of a living system where nature was the main focus, and we were going from a micro to a macro sort of environment.
It's funny, the spirit of collaboration, it comes through in the work, but it also must have come through with your experiences together. Orlando, did you guys see a connection between what you were making and your experience creating it?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, from the get-go, we all would collaborate and chat over a WhatsApp type of dialogue. We had a system already set up, and it was really astounding to watch the different energy levels, watching Alex jump right in, and then watching some of the other folks, slowly try to find their path or find their unique way of collaborating, formulating. kind of like where one person would start and where would another person begin. And some of those personalities really came through. For me, I was totally terrified. Similar to like Rik, I don't do much animation. I mean, I barely touch it. Back in the old days, possibly, but I've become fixated on really more static work. So the only contribution that I thought at first that I could bring forth was trying to capture my screen with my vector freestyle. And I'm glad that we basically pushed that towards the end of everything. I had to basically wait for everyone else to do their role before I could actually try to represent the energy and each of the elements that they all brought forth in the collaboration.
What did you guys do to support each other or maintain that collaborative spirit or energy when you're working alone thousands of miles apart?
Each one of us had things that we have never worked before or things that we didn't know. And I think what Orlando already said, we had like this kind of WhatsApp group. So we would be sharing, our thoughts, our tests, even our questions. So we were always very open with each other. And if someone was better at something, we would ask them like, hey, how can I approach this? How can I do this? So I think that was as well very part of the collaborative process. It wasn't just each one of us doing their own thing and then just fitting in this story. It was as well, how can we all together join forces to help each other in the process. And I think that was super interesting to see what everyone was doing. And I feel like it pushes to do even better. When Jody went and did our amazing drone footage in this like alien world that I didn't even know existed in US, everyone was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And I was like, and I was just like right after her, like she was just after me. So I was like, oh, am I gonna, top that? So I think he also kept us pushing further to like get even better and do like amazing stuff.
Jody, from your perspective, what was it like playing off of what Nidia was able to create? What was that sort of collaboration process like? How did her work inform yours?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was such an interesting process because I do photography and I've just started recently doing drone stuff. So, but for me, this was completely different than anything I had ever done before. And I remember when I was out filming this stuff in the desert, I was talking to both Rik and Nidia, and I was showing them the footage I was getting every day. And I was just saying, like, what do you guys think? Well, like, and specifically with Nidia, well, with both of them, I was like, will this work during our transitions? Like, can you make this work? And I mean, I didn't really know how technically it would, but yeah, Nidia would get back to me and say, yeah, well, let's just try this tree thing. And I can, if you can fly the drone and, around the tree, I can get enough footage then to make like the cloud points, right, Nidia? That's technically what it's called.
Yeah, point cloud.
Yeah, point cloud. Sorry, the point cloud data to then turn it into something amazing. And it was just such a cool process. And then to see what both of them, came up with out of the drone footage was so neat. It was just, it kind of really opened my mind into all these other realms of kind of possibility of, creativity and kind of like artistic exploration. So it was a really neat process.
Rik, I know you work in traditional painting as well, where you have a sort of blank canvas as your starting point. Here, your canvas wasn't blank. It was incredible drone photography. How did you approach that?
Yeah, first of all, I was a bit scared. Like Nidia said, the footage was amazing. So I was like, okay, I'm not a good animator. I did experiment a bit like with importing my painted canvases in 3D. So I had to find a way to match like Jody's vibe, which was like unreal with the sunset and all the nice natural colors. And usually like my work would be very hippie-like with bold yellows, purples, pinks, whatever. So I had to match that vibe. And that was a really interesting process because I had to start from a blank canvas, of course. Like I just did some paint strokes and needed to colorize that in Photoshop to match, like to make all my paintings like earth tones, which was actually quite interesting. So I tried to fake a little bit of sunlight, worked on environmental aspects such as fog and stuff like that, which like Nidia helped me with, and also Shane gave me some advice with that. So yeah, I found it really interesting, and it took my work like into a different perspective, like not to be dependent on all the bold color usage, but also keep it a little bit low key, which was really interesting to see.
Were there any softwares that you were exploring for the first time for this project?
Yeah, well, I'm like I mentioned, I'm not an animator at all. I try to avoid it in every single way that's possible because I'm not a fan of the workflow. Since I started as a Photoshop artist, it's always like, okay, you put a dot somewhere and the dot exists, it's there. With 3D, it's different, of course, and especially with moving stuff, like there's so much trial and error that the workflow is always quite slow. So in general, like I've learned a lot, like in Cinema 4D with animation, like how to loop things or like linear movements instead of like curvature stuff. But also After Effects, I barely touched it. Of course, I opened it a couple times, gave up, and right now I had to because there was some post-process to be done. So that was really cool, and especially what you can do with a render, because usually with stills I do a lot of Photoshop over it, and right now it was like a moving image, and I was like, oh, but I can't do Photoshop over it. How to make it look cool? So I kind of made that work in After Effects, and that was really interesting.
Alex, you too were playing with some new technologies, creating in VR, for example. What role did that play in your creative process? How did that change how you looked at what you were about to make?
Well, it was very fun playing with VR because it was actually the fastest thing, surprisingly. Because the creatures that I had to play were perfect for VR because they were very organic and imperfect in a way. So VR is a very powerful new tool that I think is going to evolve and help us to create in a very natural way for any creator, because it's actually using our hands the same way that we would use our pen in front of a paper. But what I think it was very helpful, it was like the shapes itself, they were very abstract. So you could just doodle something very fast. And literally, I think this project took so many hours, but the percentage of the time that I spent in VR was so ridiculously small, but still the core of the whole piece. So I think it was very fun. I just want to do it again. And basically I'm working right now on another project where I can play more with it and see if I can apply more tools into it, because I feel like I scratched the surface of a few different softwares, the VR thing, and then especially when it comes to animation, I'm very on the same board as Rik when I had to figure out many things. And this process was very helpful to understand how things work, but then just understanding how little you know. So there's a lot to go back and re-examine and like kind of like improve. So yeah, I also was thinking, it's a question for you, Rik, because you like so much Photoshop. Have you tried Substance Painter, which is like, it's Photoshop in 3D, and I think you will love it so much.
Yeah, I actually tried it, but it's like me, whenever I'm free, I always try new things, and then a project comes in. So I try it for like a couple days, and it's like, oh, project. Okay, there goes my free time. I'm focusing fully on a project. And then if the project is longer, I always find it really hard to dive back into it. I don't know how you do that, or did you manage that? Like, did you literally took time off?
Yeah.
To invest, like, yeah.
I tried, yeah. I give this project a priority of any other projects, but
yeah.
Yeah, I also think, and this is sorry for the detour here, but I feel like because of the new market of NFTs, we can actually start investing time on learning stuff that is actually relevant to us, not just a client, which I think is great to keep a balance of like commission and experimentation, but experimentation never had a priority, and it was something very in at the bottom of the list. But now it's kind of like, whoa, okay, maybe we can invest some time into learning the stuff that we actually were really interested in a personal way. So yeah, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm like just playing with VR and trying to come up with something that I want to learn. Also, this other software, Substance Painter, and all that stuff.
But that was also cool with the living system, right? Like we didn't really get a brief, so we all kind of, sorry for the detour, we all kind of kicked it. Like we were free to do whatever we wanted to do. Although, yeah, okay, we have a concept, but in the end, like at first it was like, okay, what do you want to do? That question. And usually a client comes to you and never asks that. Like, hey, Rik, what do you want to do? Here's my money, take it and have a good day. You know, like it's never like that.
That's crazy brands are changing so much. I feel like in that sense, because they want to find voices in the individual rather than from their own sort of like making. And I think that's very beneficial for us creators. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. I never had a brief like that. So yeah,
that was cool.
Well, and what was also so cool was that we had to figure out a way to do something that, you know, each of us could, you know, achieve, which is kind of that was, you know, hard to think about. You know, just I was like, how am I gonna fit in, like how's my photography or drone footage gonna fit in with 3D, you know, or animation or vector, or you know what I mean? It was just like, whoa.
Did you
but
choose
it's
the
also
location?
Like the Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, you go. Okay, no, but I mean like the fact like of being insecure to do something like that, like it was quite scary. For me to animate, for example, for you, Alex, to do VR, for you, Jody, to make like legit drone footage and stuff like that, find a location and everything. And I think that's the cool part. We were all kind of scared, like, okay, are we going to deliver something that's good enough? Like also compared to what the others achieved. And that also pushed us into the right direction. I feel like that energy. I mean, like for me, honestly, Alex, here I go again. Like Alex used to be like my big hero, like back in the days. He still is kind of,
but not anymore.
Not anymore. After he met me, it always happens. I tend to disappoint after they met me.
No. But I looked up like miles high to like Alex and GMUNK kind of were the inspiration sources for me to start out, and then you have to do something together with them. And I'm like, okay, Rik, how are you going to manage this? Like not to look like bad in between those names or in between like what those people do. And that was my first worry, but I think that's the reason why we really push it to another level.
Jody, how did you pick up the location that you shoot on? Because it felt like a perfect way to doubt if it was CG generated or it was real, because the landscape itself, it just so
surreal.
It is like a generative texture of something that you could do with substance very easy, and it feels like wow. Like, how do you choose that location?
Yeah, well, it was actually a really interesting process for me. I think when I started to think about locations, I was mostly thinking about Rik's color palette and those like, you know, like the pinks and the huey pink stuff. And then I started thinking about, well, you know, the red desert, the desert areas of the US. And then I wanted to go somewhere like I had never been before, because I always like kind of exploring new places. But then on top of that, I couldn't go into any national parks. I also didn't want to shoot anything that a ton of people had seen a million times. You know, I wanted it to be unique and interesting, and then something that I could legally fly a drone in. And so that, you know, I kept, you know, through my research, just kept whittling it down. And then I was talking to other people, and they're giving me some good location ideas. And then, you know, you go on Google Earth and you kind of check them out. And then finally it's just like, okay, let's just wing it. Let's just get in the van and go, and, you know, we'll adapt and see what happens, see what we find. But I mean, I initially had those two locations in mind. I just didn't know, you know, if it would be achievable. And it actually worked out better than I anticipated, which I usually think is the case once you just go for it, you know?
Mm-hmm. Nice. So part of your process, how much of it depends on how you make your research? Is it like through do you use Instagram like us to look what is a cool place? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of create like this mood board. So I'm going through Instagram, I'm looking on the internet, I'm doing screenshots and captures of different landscapes that I like. And then ones that, again, I kind of want to do stuff that not a lot of people seen, hasn't been so much in the mainstream, so like arches and stuff like that. I was like, people have seen that a million times. So, but yeah, I start creating like this mood board, and then I try to just see if I can get to places that are just a little bit more interesting, a little bit different. And so I kind of whittle it down from there. And I talked to some people, like other drone people or other artists. I would use Instagram actually to message other photographers that, I'd never talked to before, or drone operators, and just like, hey, where is this section that you shot? Like what kind of location, and what are, is it legal to fly drones there? What's the situation? So I was doing a lot of that actually.
Alex, I imagine playing around in VR for sort of the first time, trial and error plays a huge role. Nidia, was trial and error a big part of your process here? What were you experimenting with for the first time?
Yeah, I think for me, compared to everyone else, or most of the people here, like, because Rik already said, me, Shane, and GMUNK pretty much already did animation somehow. It was more on that we already had that kind of workflow. So I think for me, the hardest part was like, what can be my breakthrough, right? If I already do this kind of stuff daily, how can I do something that I haven't done before? So I think that's where I start like thinking like, what other tools or software can I try? And then knowing that Jody was going to use a drone, I think that's when I was like, oh, I never really tracked footage or extracted like point cloud from it to create a 3D version of it. So I think that was where I was like, okay, that's more technical than what I usually do. So I think that was where I was like, I'm going to try like, I had to read a bit about it as well to understand what I needed to ask Jody, right? Because like I needed some specific footage from her, and I did tests of like all the footage that I had just to make sure that it worked. Because obviously it would be a bit wasted if she would go there, shoot things that I asked, and then it didn't work. So I think that was mainly where I've tried different things or new tools, was like definitely that tracking and getting her like tree and that landscape into 3D. That was definitely like a new thing for me. So yeah, I think I was trying to get more technical than I usually am. I do also do a lot of stills like Rik, but I do have a background in motion as well. So for me, yeah, it definitely was really hard. Like, where can I do something new, right? And I think that was probably what took longer. But yeah, I love the process and like seeing what Jody was showing us. And I kept on telling her, like, if you don't find the tree, it's fine, because like I'm going to the desert. But she found this like perfect tree in the middle of nowhere. So that was like super cool as well. So yeah, definitely like that back and forth and understanding how to get that footage was definitely the new tool that I used.
The tree moment is one of the standout moments of the whole film. Can you talk more about point clouds and maybe explain what that might be to a layman or Rik?
Yeah, I'm actually very interested in that.
I was just about to ask that. Like, what is a point cloud? I hear it like all the time, like throughout the process, but I don't get it.
Yeah, so if you have a special camera, like a LiDAR camera, it just pretty much like hits, I think it's light or something like that, into the surface and creates points as it hits the surface. If you don't have that more expensive or specific camera, what we did was you just like Jody had to like do almost like a 360 degree movement around the tree, just so we can have enough information of like all the sides of the tree, and the landscape also got a bit. And then I put it through a software called Mushroom. So from her footage, I kind of picked out frames out of it that could encapsulate all that like part of the tree. And then once it was in the software did pretty much the rest. So they tried to calculate based on the camera. So they tried to calculate where the camera was in 3D space, and then kind of try to create like points out of it. You can also create a mesh, but that wasn't what I wanted from it. But so I had to do that. But I also had to track her camera because it wasn't a still camera, right? So because I was going to do the transition to her shot, I also had to make sure that my camera and hers matched. And whenever I tried to do it manually didn't really work because obviously the drone doesn't fly like linear because of like the wind and everything. So I actually had to track it as well, just to make sure that from my shot to her, it would match perfectly.
I also saw you, Nidia, playing around with some photography as well. Was that for reference, or did that make it into the final piece?
It did actually. So I wasn't planning on filming anything, but then GMUNK was filming, Jody was filming. So I was in between. I was like, oh man, I should do some filming as well. So, but because I don't do the type of filming, I was like, I always like this abstract stuff. And I just saw a video of someone doing like with liquids. I was like, I'm going to try that. And it's kind of no expectation versus reality. Mine sucked compared to like this one that I was watching on YouTube. So I just started spicing it up and buying more stuff. And then I bought glitter and all the stuff and color, red color thing and ink, and I just put it everything, and then it just actually looked pretty cool. And I just film it. I actually have it here. 1 second. So that first shot of the things going around, I don't know if you can see, but it's here. I don't know if you can see, but yeah. It's
I thought those
glitter.
were particles.
No, it's filmed.
You
it's
broke my heart
Whoa.
right now.
I gotta watch it again.
No, it's definitely filmed.
Wow, I was like, how the
love
hell
that
is
you're
she's
mixing it
got
up.
these amazing particles?
Oh yeah,
I
people
was like,
thought I've
she's
done
so
Houdini stuff.
badass.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I was blown away. Wow.
Yeah, it's just like, it's hard to see like here, but it's like, it's just really the surface, and it's water, oil, I think.
No, I love seeing the fact that you took a break from
and then
3D.
it was, and then it was like, the glitter like really got stuck into like this kind of bubbles that the oil created, and then created almost like this weird, I thought it was more like almost like a galaxy. And I don't even have a macro lens. But with my camera, it still was enough. And then I just graded and put some like lights. And it was all homemade. Like I used this IKEA light because I could change the lights, like the tone of it. So it was all like homemade, in here in the office. But yeah, it was all filmed.
Very smart. Like, I think, that's super clever. Yeah. Like, don't get my disappointment as a bad feedback. It's like, wow, that was super clever.
No, a lot of people ask me how people thought I did Houdini or something like that. I was like, how did you do that in Cine 4D? I was like, it is filmed. So it's,
I have to watch it again now. I gotta check it out.
Orlando.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your process. How are you pushing yourself to try something new here? Let's talk a little bit more about Vector Freestyle and how you approached creating the movie poster for the living system.
Yeah, last year was one of, having to deal with the pandemic and everything from afar. It was one of my most insane, most busiest years. And it was really, really tough trying to break into something new. So I went a different route. I actually found a majority of confidence through the Z4 workstation that I had. And finally, I had a rig that was strong enough, fast enough, and reliable for me to be able to really take to my tablet and start drawing in real time. And when I wanted to, I felt that this was the best road to take to submit something different within the group, something that you could see from start to finish. The way, all of my mistakes, all of my thought building, the evolution of the piece without any trapeze or a safety net. And I think my breakthrough was that, to actually find a level of confidence through the Z4 platform.
Wow. So instead of focusing on the finished product, you're really celebrating the process behind the work. That was a shift for you, huh?
Yeah, no, it totally was, because, having to have to wait for all of the other ambassadors to, go through their evolution, go through their formatting and their level of collaboration to see, the instance of where, a glimmer of it started to really blossom into a full-blown entity. That's when the green light went on for me, and everybody was like, okay, now it's your turn, go play. So I had to wait several months in order for everyone to really get through their exploratory. And then I had the daunting task of going, okay, this isn't a moment for me to just do my thing. This poster doesn't just represent me. I have to really show the love and the respect and kind of the admiration of this living system as a whole. So I needed to really review, and I reviewed the whole video, daily, You know, I would be eating breakfast, I'd be watching it. I'd take my tablet over to the kitchen for lunch and I'd be watching it. You know, before bed, my wife would be like, oh, no, you're not going to watch it again. I'm like, yeah, no, I got to try to have dreams, you know, so I could at least wake up tomorrow and really go to town. So when I would go to town on sketching on it, you know, I would really go back and find the uniqueness, the different levels of energy and vibrancy, and go, okay, wow, I'm being inspired by you know, Nidia's crazy swirl glitter, you know, portion of that. And I love the organics of what's going on within Jody's piece, and also GMUNK's kind of infrared, you know, video photography. And then I have, you know, being a big fan of Rik Oostenbroek, you know, seeing his granular kind of, you know, escalation, and then having, you know, a hint of Shane, you know, Shane Griffin's, you know, Mr. Griff, cityscape in the fine horizon, you know, bringing all of those elements into this beautiful, you know, graphic jambalaya that would make sense. You know, it wasn't a time for me to go all sci-fi'd out or all Hollywood or all superhero or overcomplicated. I really wanted to just do my best to show the love of what this group collaborative effort from a global standpoint could represent. And I had to do it in real time. I just had to hit the record button and just go to town and, you know, totally, you know, having to deal with my mistakes, if there were any, perceived any mistakes. But I recorded it, and then I recorded all of the other sessions. And I think I have about 15 different posters that I designed, and I offered it up throughout the WhatsApp, you know, chat. And I was like, okay, guys, you know, don't want to be overbearing, but here's about, you know, a good solid 8 to review. And, you know, it was really quick. You know, it was really quick. I think Nidia was one of the first ones that came out, and she was like, hey, this one right here, this one's really cool, you know. And after that, everybody soon followed. And there were a few that were like, hey, you know, can we explore probably shifting the colors to make it look a little bit more like this? And but there wasn't really that much more to really revise after that. You know, I felt that, you know, I had done my job, so to say, my part of showing the love and being a part of this fantastic living system.
Vector freestyle, it's so performative. It's almost like a dance. You have a pretty robust community online. Do your followers, are they interested in watching this? Do they watch it in time lapse? Do you slow it down? Like, how much are they able to learn from your process by watching these?
Good question. It's really totally up to them. You know, how they perceive things. It's totally a very non-forgivable, you know, application. It's not 3D. Thank God it's not 3D for my part. Although, you know, I'm totally interested, and no disrespect to my fellow, you know, brothers and sisters. I have the utmost respect for all of you in 3D. Photoshop is too forgivable, and Vector hardly gets any time in the limelight within the creative world.
So I know it's only been hardly a couple months since you finished this project. Have any of you already had the opportunity to take any of these new skills and apply them to either client work or your NFT work or your experimental work on your own?
Like, for me, animation has always been something I'm amazed by, but I simply don't like the workflow. But yeah, I kind of start to appreciate it more. Now I know like how much from my still workflow I can end up having in like the animation workflow. So yeah, definitely. But I'm just messing around, and nothing cool came out of it yet. But I'm just working on it like low key and see whatever pops up. Because like, as you might know, I just became a daddy, so I'm taking it slow with work right now.
Right on, little IPA.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think, yes, I think many artists, like many creators are thinking about doing artistic stuff that before they were not really allowed. They were, even, for example, I think when I was putting myself into a personal project, I was trying to find an intention kind of like aligned with the taste of a potential client. So now the focus is way more open, and the lexicon that maybe you can use in your own thing is doesn't need to be just pretty or nice. It could be, something that can connect with a person that wants to collect something that is, not necessarily just good looking for the advertisement field. So I think that's super exciting. I think we are entering a very cool period of self-expression and hopefully, this will pan out in a nice way for many artists.
Jody, you brought a camera up into the sky, maybe for the first time with the drone photography. Have you found yourself taking to the skies once again?
Yeah, now the drone goes with me everywhere.
Nice.
I take it now. I take it on all my assignments, just because it's just an amazing storytelling tool. It's great to add. It's a great addition to a storyteller's workflow for sure. And not only that, but for me, like this project is not only like pushed me in my drone work, but also just the collaboration component and just like kind of thinking, what kind of other crazy stuff can I do or collaborate with? Like I really want to collaborate now, like way, way more, and kind of push those boundaries of kind of creativity and storytelling in ways that a lot of people haven't seen before. And I just find this project's really opened my eyes to that, and I'm extremely grateful for it.
Nidia, you're participating in another panel here at OFF, which is also sponsored by Z by HP, called Women in Motion. I was wondering if you could elaborate on the rapidly rising role of women in the field of 3D.
Yeah, I think I never really thought of being a role model to other people. But then more increasingly, I've been having people like women and girls coming to me, right? Oh, you do 3D and all this stuff. So I think that I realized that it was important for other people to have role models in the industry. So for especially in women or non-binary or other cultures and stuff like that. So it was great for me to be doing this project with, like Rik was saying, it's such an amazing, and the group that we have is everyone is so good and renowned and amazing work that we've been following for years. So being part of the group made me humbly think that, oh, I'm part of this group and I'm so happy to be here and doing this kind of project. And once we also had the opportunity to do another panel here at OFF for women, I thought that since 3D is such a thing or motion is mainly seen as a man-dominated world, I contacted a few friends of mine and people that I followed that were in lead positions at studios and stuff like that to kind of as well show other people that, we are here, that we have these positions and anyone can come in and, to this industry and just have fun, not having to worry about any of those things.
Right on.
Why do you think is the main reason? Because it's true, it's very man-dominated, the industry. But from your point of view, what kind of causes this statistic?
I really don't know. I feel like there's so many different jobs, right, that I have the opposite as well, right? We were joking on the other woman policy, one said, oh, we should do a man in illustration because there's a lot of women doing illustration, right? Especially in motion graphics. Usually the women's are in the 2D are doing illustration and all that stuff. So we're saying that it kind of goes that way, but I don't really know because when I joined and started to do 3D, I started doing it because I thought it was fun. There was never, for me at least, oh, it's a lot of men, I'm not going to go and do that. But yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. I feel like nowadays there's more information as well, and I think it's easier for people to like when I was studying in high school, I didn't know what design was, for example, until it wasn't something that was taught here in Portugal. So I think it may be that as well. Nowadays there's much more information. You can have access to courses online, that you didn't have before. So I'm hoping that it's becoming more accessible to everyone either way, not just women, anyone to try it. So I'm hoping that there's a change, but I don't honestly know what people decide. I just did what I thought was fun. And, that's what I chose as a career.
No, it's true. Because sometimes we are attracted to things that is based on the perception that society has placed into it. And yeah, like probably you're missing out on something you would love just because, yeah, society is not presenting it right. That's so true. And it's true, like 3D, it's been, I never thought I would be doing 3D. And also I perceive it as something that it was not very welcoming for an artistic mind, because these days it feels like 3D, it's kind of like, it's not your talent, it's about your ability to communicate with a machine that goes on top of a talent, that you can have the taste and all that stuff, but all that technical side, it just, it belongs a little bit to that side of society that is, it's like, you need to be a real nerd, and like, it's kind of like, it's something that it wasn't that open or appealing. And I think right now it's kind of like opening it up so much. And now we're all nerds. But Jody's not a nerd. She's an adventurer.
What takeaway would you want for anybody, but maybe specifically for younger creatives, less established creatives, to take away from this film and this project and your collaboration?
What is most exciting to me is like, for example, I've been working 15 years in a way that somehow it's been changing all the time. So today is in many ways back to square one in many aspects. So, but that should feel also like a huge motivation, because I feel like if you're a young person, you're basically shortcutting to the future so much faster than, like maybe others. And I, for example, feel like I don't have the stamina or the energy that I used to have when I was 20, but I wish I was 20, because there's so much to learn and do. And the canvas is so huge and it's so blank that it's a very exciting time to be a creator. So yeah, if you're a young person that is motivated about creativity, I think, yeah, like this film shows that, everything is changing very fast and we're all learning all the time. And this is what we did, learn new things.
I would say, going into this, most of us didn't know how it was going to work, what we were doing. We were probably scared, didn't know how, we were starting from square one, like Alex said, but also just in terms of, like, I think, Rik and Orlando, spoke about it. Just they were just like nervous and scared because they just didn't know, if they were good enough, or where, all of us think that way, and if what we make's going to be good enough. And, I just think that's a huge, like a powerful message to young people, is that all of us, kind of felt that way to, varying degrees. And we all just didn't know, if it would work, how we were going to do it. And then you just take it a step at a time and you start to figure it out. And then you create this thing and you're like, oh my God, like we did it. We created this thing that we didn't even think was possible. And so, yeah, I just think that's a really powerful message. And I think, I don't know, as a creative myself, I'm constantly often in that place where I want to be pushing myself into those unknown areas and just being like, I don't know if it's going to work or if I can do it, but I'm going to try.
If you'd like to learn more about this project, you can watch Co-Created, a behind-the-scenes documentary about the creation of the living system at hp.com/co-created. That's hp.com/COCREATED. Thank you to Z by HP for putting this panel together. Thanks to our ambassadors. And thank you for watching. Hope you have another fantastic, inspiring experience at OFF 2021.